Welcome back to Final Fantasy VIII. So yeah,
Can't be late for my exam to finally become an assassin.
Yeah, time to do our practical exam to become a seed. Well, Teo, assassination is kind of part of the job anyway, so it's not entirely wrong.
Mostly, I wonder if it's the game not using quote-unquote strong words, but we're mostly defined as just mercenaries rather than assassins.
So what kind of seed is he? So what kind of seed is he becoming? A sunflower seed?
No. They're all the same thing, Dwebs. They're mercenaries. They just do whatever pays.
There is a meaning behind the name, Dwebs. It's not just there for pointless fluff, but it's gonna be said.
Anyway, here's something that this game introduces: a draw point. What is a draw point? It has spells that you can draw. However, I can't draw spells yet, so we'll get back to this later. Alright, and now everybody sit down for a very boring tutorial. I have a few things to explain before we head off, Squall.
A few.
Just okay. Pay attention, Shiro. You gotta learn something. Garden Force gives us strength. The stronger the Garden Force, the stronger we become. There actually will be a test. Yes.
I wish I had a
Well, you are the school.
So here's a brief explanation. Yeah, brief explanation on junctioning your Garden Force.
Is it gonna last the whole part?
No.
Also, I'm sorry, Jova, but I left school ages ago.
Junction
and I
tutorial.
plan on going back.
Alright, here we go.
Junction enables characters to power up and use abilities.
Well, sure, beware for when we eventually cover Fire Emblem Free Houses, then.
This means a Garden Force must be junctioned in order to power up and use abilities. For those who forgot,
why couldn't you put that bit in this bit?
For those who forgot, a Garden Force is the summon spirits that we summon in this game. Okay, Let's begin by junctioning a Garden Force. How do you even junction a Garden Force to yourself? How does that physical process even work?
I also have a rant to type to this, but I want to wait until the end of the tutorial.
Right now, no Garden Force is junctioned. All other commands in Grey can basically, without a Garden Force junction to your character can only do a physical attack, and that's it. It cannot do anything else.
So
once junction is hold on, Jova, let's just go for the tutorial before we say something because I want to get through this. The Garden Force and magic commands appear. So since we don't have magic, since we need to have a Garden Force junction in order to junction magic, we can't junction magic yet. Yeah, what Quistis just said. Thanks, Quistis. Since no Garden Force is junction, magic is displayed in Grey. Exactly. Let's junction a Garden Force.
Let's junction a GF.
Interesting term, junction. By selecting Garden Force, a Garden Force list appears. Let's just say GF for short for now. Press square to see abilities possessed by a GF.
Your GF is a noun for girl.
And the abilities of the GF, and these are the abilities of the GFS: HPJ, Vitality J, Magic, Garden Force draw item commands, and Magic plus 20%. So let's choose a Garden Force, or GF, sorry.
No, if Ifrit's quite a hot girlfriend of us.
Debs, go to the bad joke jail now.
Bad junction jail.
Junction yourself to the jail, good sir.
Yes. HPJ and VIII make the stats HP and Vitality appear in white, as you can see there. See, notice HP and Vitality are now white. This means that now we can junction magic to HP and Vitality. You're probably thinking, Shiro and Dwebs, okay, this already is sounding pretty unnecessarily complicated. It gets worse. But since
my brain has left the building.
But since there is currently no magic, let's just set abilities. So there you go. The Garden Force will be junctioned. Quetzalcoatl has the magic, GF, draw, and item commands, so we can junction those commands to the character. We also have a magic plus 20% ability that we can junction. So yeah, let's put in. Yeah, a total of 5 abilities can be set. Depending on the GF's abilities, the maximum is 4 non-command abilities, depending on a GF, because the current GFs we have only have for two non-command abilities. This means that up to 7 abilities can be set.
The 3 of the command is stuff that you can do in battle. The ability are basically the perks
that
you can attach yourself.
So let's hit some abilities. First, select a slot. The top window is for command abilities used during battle. So in order to use magic, you need to junction the magic command to your character.
Yeah.
Sure.
I
why
really
not?
don't understand the use of the word junction here.
To be a junction.
It's a fancy synonymous for connection and connected.
Yeah.
Sure, that's pretty much it.
To be a junction is part of a motorway.
Yeah.
To be fair,
Exactly. I don't understand these other usages.
to be fair, a noun for junction is basically a point where two or more things are joined. So technically, the word
Yeah.
works. As for why
Yep.
Square are using this, Shiroyan Dwibs Square. Square, Shiroyan Dwibs. It is probably common knowledge at this
fancy
point
terms
that
is-
Trust me, Shiro. Trust me, Shiro. You were introduced to this stuff of Kingdom Hearts. No, trust me. Square was already deep in unnecessarily complicated terminology way before Kingdom Hearts was a thing.
precisely.
Oh
Listen-
no, remember, I wasn't
These-
used to this. I
these
played that
also-
game as vanilla as I possibly could.
These also include not knowing Latin and not knowing how to pronounce it.
I didn't even know Final Fantasy was a thing until like the mid 2000s.
Sure. So yeah, draw. This is how I meant command ability. Why the hell is a tutorial setting the draw command right below attack? That just looks so awkward to me. But whatever. Let's add GF, an item, to the list of command abilities.
This is clearly trying to mimic
my
the material
girlfriend is not a
tutorial for
command
Final
ability.
Fantasy VII.
GF?
Okay,
I was about to
don't-
say my girlfriend is not.
So yeah, keep in mind, everybody, you can't use item.
Oh
Hold
my
on.
God.
Keep
Go
in
on.
mind, you can't use items unless you junction the item command to your character.
Apparently, your character is too stupid to use them unless it's Junction.
Disclaimer: I don't have a girlfriend.
The
A character
junction
ability is
well,
displayed.
The junction is life.
Judging by
Junction is a hell of a drug kid.
Is it just me, or is this game already boring as fuck?
Not just that,
judging by how convoluted this is, my brain might be so frazzled I might not have a chance to get
Believe-
one at this point.
Believe me, Dweebs, the game is just making it appear way more fancy than it is, because on a practical level it's actually really easy when you get down to it. No, it's the entire way it's constructed, because Squaresoft at the time thought that
So,
this...
everything okay?
Hold on.
Everybody get that? Good.
Pretty much.
Everything okay up
Wait,
until now.
There's gonna be an actual test to put
You can
that
you can always check tutorial if you want to rewatch that tutorial again. So once we get to the fire cavern, I'll explain how to junction magic. Yes, there's a total of 4 junction tutorials for the record. Use the
At least the game
command
is giving you a breather.
use the command draw during battle and stock magic from your enemies. But be sure to have
I
some stock
prefer tutorials sprinkled out, you know?
ready to go. The fire cavern used for the test is located east of here. Okay,
I'm
this
just
is
like Pokemon tutorials.
This is something that I haven't addressed in the previous part. So you're probably wondering what kind of practical test will Squall go through in order to become a proper full-blown seed? Simple. He has to go into a fire cavern to fight a fire demon.
Ifrit.
Yes, because there you go, Shiro. Apparently, this is what students, when they reach minimum age of 15, do when they take the
Yeah.
practical exam. They go fight the demon of fire.
Now,
Well,
to be
How come I
fair,
didn't do that?
the actual cavern is guarded by 2 instructors, so there is the implication that people who don't succeed are still rescued in some capacity, but it's still mildly stupid. But anyway, let me explain. Yes, this of all Squaresoft thought that this was the ideal game to completely fuck up their traditional, turn-based system by removing the MP gauge, structuring magic like it's a fucking unit of resource, a resource with units that you need to draw from enemies and from the drawing point that Pedro mentioned before. Then you have to store it in Unity Maximum 99, use the GF, aka the spirits, to attach yourself to them, and allowing you to use these kind of perks, and using said magic for the slots that the GF allows you to use, to boost up your stats, regardless of the level that you are. When you really start to thinking about it for 5 minutes, you realize that this system completely breaks the game in half, because the enemy level scales with you. So if you keep a low level but you max up your stat with high magic and GFs with a lot of abilities, you essentially become God against a bunch of minions.
Yeah,
You know,
basically.
This is kind of always a bit of an issue with Square here. Do not get me wrong. I get not wanting to have your franchise run stale or anything, but Final Fantasy is something where they make it their mission every time to make it so that not one thing is one-to-one the same as the previous in terms of gameplay. And that can range from changes to absolutely nightmarish changes. I'm looking at you, Final Fantasy II.
Now, to be fair, this is a sort of a. You can argue that this is sort of a callback to how the Magicite worked for Final Fantasy VI, where it basically it taught you how to use spells, and it was connected to your stats, so it gave you the bonus that you needed, But this is such a it's using an axe where you should be using the surgeon's scalpel for crafting this kind of system, and there's also the fact that it limits your abilities in combat, because you can only attack and then choose 3 commands between the list, and you're gonna need draw, because you're gonna need to get magic somehow from battle. You potentially want to
now I
the
can
magic
draw.
command
Hold on to just a
to
moment.
actually use it.
Found the draw point, and we found cures. Let's draw them for Squall. So now Squall has 5 cures. As in, okay, let me explain. Okay, let me explain this real quick. Are you done too? By the way.
No, but go on, because it's important. Go on.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to make things a bit easier. Okay, basic. Okay, Shiroi, question. You know how in Kingdom Hearts you have MP and you have magic spells, and each magic spell costs X MP, and that's it. You just have to mind about how much MP you have. Into your spells. That's simple, right? That's not how it works here. Instead, Shiroi, you don't. There's no MP gauge. Instead, Shiroi, you have the spells basically work as if they were items. As in, I have 5 cures. That means I can only use cure 5 times. If I run out of cures, I have to get more.
Oh my
That's
god.
Could you imagine if Kingdom Hearts worked like that?
Chain of memories.
But Kingdom Hearts, I would argue Chain of Memories actually designed things better, but that's a topic for another day.
Also, potentially the command abilities from Verbal Sleep and 3D encoded. But the thing is that you're not incentive to use magic as a result. And like I mentioned, if you exploit this system in your favor by stocking up a lot of units of powerful magic,
hold on too.
keeping them in your
You can also draw magic spells from the enemies. How the hell does this work? I don't know.
By the way, this also means a lot of managing in terms of finding the correct enemy to get the correct magic. And some magic can get from a couple of enemies at specific points in the game. There are stuff that you can potentially miss permanently. Now, the one potential good side of this is that the drawing command allows you potentially to not just stock, but to cast immediately the spells that you acquired without having to consume your reserve, which is a neat idea, but the problem is that spells are kinda useless to be cast. They really do function better as an engine for your stats.
I have to explain that first, though, too. Okay, here's the basic. So you're probably wondering, Shiroi, what is the primary way to use magic in this game? That's the thing, Shiroi. It's not even recommended that you use magic at all. So, what that thing that they were trying to explain there with the Junction tutorial is that you're probably wondering, Shiroi, how do you raise your character stats? Question, Shiroi, how do you do that in Kingdom Hearts? How do you raise your stats?
EXP and
leveling up. Leveling up, right. You don't raise your stats in level up, so leveling up is kind of useless. So you're probably wondering, Shiroi, how do I raise my stats? Simple. I attach magic to my stats, or as the game puts it, I junction magic to my stats. As in, for example, the best magic to junction to your HP, one of the better magics to junction to your HP is Curaga. If you junction Curaga to your HP will increase immensely. So there you go, sure. That's how you increase your stats, by grinding for magic and junctioning that magic to your stats. The more magic you have, the higher the stat will rise.
Now, one thing that the game...
Because... I don't know.
Shiroi, there's a thing, Shiroi, where as people discover very quickly, there's also another way to exploit the game in your advantage. One thing that the game doesn't really tutorialize you is that one of your early Guardian Force GFs that you can get as an ability that you can use to turn enemies that have low health into cards, the one that you need to use for Tetramaster. Here's the thing. Another ability from your GFs is the fact that you can transmute cards into units of magic that you don't need to draw enemy for. So quickly, you can imagine, by surmising quickly, you basically turn enemy into cards, which doesn't give you XP, meaning that you keep a low level. You turn the cards into magic, that you can junction to the stats, And depending on keep in mind, cards of enemies can give you powerful magic even at this point of the game, meaning that still around disc 1, you essentially snap the game in half and you become, like I said, a god. And basically not even getting to the other bit of breaking the game in terms of getting the loot still from the cards and crafting each character's final each character's final weapon before the end of disc 1, which is insane.
You think that's bad?
Again, I wonder if it was an entire decision for Square's part or not. And then there's also the matter of the limit breaks on how they work in this game, which is also exploitable as hell.
Yeah. That's a thing, especially in this remaster too, where you can literally press R3 to give yourself an instant limit break.
Now, I think we're going to tutorialize those out later on, but just to be quick.
Not right now, right now actually.
Oh, alright.
Okay, Junctioning magic. Now pay attention.
Notice also that Squall doesn't say anything in this so far.
You see, Shiroi, this game is actually schoolwork. Schoolwork the game.
It is literally schoolwork.
Junctioning magic. By junctioning magic, you can raise the character's stats, as I just explained before. But let's see what Quistis has to say about it. If the GF has learned the ability... Oh yeah, this thing, I have to explain the abilities later, but for now let's get to this. To junction into stats. That particular stat will be displayed in white.
For example, here, strength and spirit.
By selecting junction here...
Can't I just sing a song and get magic that way?
Sorry, Dwebs.
Wrong game, Dwebs.
Wrong game.
Also, the bar class is weak by default.
You are able to junction magic by selecting magic. No!
Oh god, you're again reminding me of Final Fantasy Flipping 2.
Newsflash, Teo, you can check your magic by picking magic in the commands.
2 doesn't have bards, Jova, it's 4 that has it. Oh, yeah. You're confusing because you're American, sorry.
Alright, let's just...
pardoname.
No, I genuinely forgot about that, it's my bad.
Let's just...
This series had a weird release history.
Let's just focus on this. Choose the magic of the cursor. So there you go, see? Fire, Thunder, Blizzard, Cure. So you can choose which magic, and you also see there in the yellow numbers how much of a stat increase you get from each spells. So the best
you have to experiment, actually, about this.
That's the thing, Teo, not really, because the game tells you how much, which of your spells increases most, so just pick one that increases most, really.
But you will need to get a variety of spell and see what sticks the most out.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing, Teo, it boils down to this. Every time you get a new spell that you didn't get before, go into the junction menu and check how much it affects your stats and act accordingly, really. It's way more straightforward than just that. Anyway, you can also select auto after junctioning so that the game will do it for you. So there you go. You can actually... if you don't want to go through all this crap, auto will junction magic automatically. You can pick to prioritize attack, magic, or defense.
Kind of like Dwebs how the 7 remake does for leveling up the weapon Crystarium.
Exactly.
Really, the more one thinks about this, the more this game feels like a harkening back to the actual Final Fantasy II on the NES.
It's an attempt...
I kind of disagree because that works instead of, using a command in actual combat in order to progress it properly. You don't have to stock up items and attach them to your stance.
It's like...
Well, hence why I say it's a more harkening back to it as opposed to revolution of it.
So when you draw new magic, try experimenting with it when you junction. This is how you become strong. And now we're going to get a tutorial that Teo was mentioning. Okay, ready to go? Oh!
Squall, answer the fucking question.
You know how to use your gunblade?
Swish, slash.
Yeah, believe it or not, Squall actually has a unique ability.
It's better to go over it.
Normal attack.
The status screen displays each character's basic data. That's the thing, Teo. The limit breaks are the only thing that separates the characters, really.
No. Squall's gunblade actually has a gimmick for it in combat, but I think
I know, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying too. The second screen shows all the status and elemental related information. Sorry. The third
I miss the vibrant blue.
The third status screen shows GF related information.
You can change it if you want here, but this is the default. This is metallic.
Well, actually no, Teo.
It's so dull.
Well, actually no, Teo. In 9 you can, but in 8 you can change back to blue. Actually. In 9 you can, because 9 was supposed to be a throwback to the classics, but yeah. Squall's gunblade settings can be changed in the limit break screen. You can choose to make it the game do. Basically, it has some little rhythm minigame shit going on with the limit breaks.
That's only for Squall, though. Basically, his gunblade, as the name suggests.
Well, actually, it's also for Zal,
it.
but yeah.
And when you're normal attacking, you have to press R1 and Squall will pull the trigger and inflict critical damage for it.
However, if you select Gunblade Auto to on, the game will basically just do it for you. It's automatically without any
gimmick, but I believe it should have been developed better. It's better developed for the limit break, that's for sure.
However, a perfect may not be possible with this option. You must select off if you want to. So basically, the game will do it for you. However, you cannot do as maximum damage as is possible to do. So basically, that being said, you don't need that. But for the reasons that Tim already mentioned, this is kind of negligible in terms of defeating enemies. So don't worry about it.
I will say this though, I do actually kind of like the Gunblade special. It is, if not anything else, a cool idea. And hell, at least they actually use it properly like a gunblade.
Well, I don't know if he ever shoots it, but whatever.
What happens if you shoot it? Does the sword just come out and stab the guy?
Well, I've actually been talking about what happens when he pulls the trigger. He basically gets a critical magical shot from it.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
I thought by that it then the blade shoots out.
That explanation. Well, I can tell that explanation doesn't actually inform itself in the story itself, but whatever. The point is, basically, the limit breaks can either be you can either automate them, specifically Squall's on limit break, but that's what I usually do because, to be fair,
it still doesn't mention the thing that I was.
Anyway, Quistis limit break. Quistis limit break is blue
magic,
magic, meaning she can learn magic from the enemies.
Actually, no. You need to actually use one of the.
Yeah, hold on. You're right. Sorry, for a moment there too, my mind tried to wander into a different game. Sorry.
Not just that. Quistis blue magic in this game is lame compared to the other ones. We managed to make blue magic lame, which is the most fun part of a magic in Final Fantasy. But no, let me explain quickly. To trigger a character's limit break, two conditions have to be potentially met. One, it has to be in critical health, meaning that it's yellow, or other has to be under a positive buff called aura, which makes them golden. Here's the thing. In order to trigger that, you need to continuously skip your turn pressing triangle or the equivalent.
Allow me to explain. There you go. Thanks game. Basically, you can learn blue magic thanks to special items as well. And since I gave myself all items with my save wizard just to speed up this incredibly tedious process, let's just give Quistis all of her blue magic already. Go ahead, too.
You need to constantly skip the turn of a character with triangle or the equivalent, depending on the controller you're using. At that point, a jingle will play, and the attack option will have a press right, variant to get to the limit break. Here's the thing. Again, if you think about it for a couple of seconds, you know that you can easily, exploit this as well to have limit breaks every single turn. And limit breaks are broken as hell on their own because they are one of the few things that allow characters to do multiple hits, for one single attack instead of just one hit. Meaning that, for example, with Squall, you can spam his limit break, Renzokuken, which means continuous sword in Japanese, by the way, and then conclude with one of his limit break, depending on the weapon that he possesses, in order to deal massive damage to any kind of enemy. Even the super bosses crumble before these techniques.
Oh, do I check that now? Okay, I guess not. Never mind. Continue.
No, but that's pretty much it. Again, the game has this structure, but that it's so easily exploitable in your favor. And I do wonder if it was intentional for the developer to create this kind of sandbox.
Now allow me
do whatever.
Now allow me to add what you just said, Teo, and that's for people like me and Teo who can figure it out relatively easy with enough thought. Now for people for people who don't really want to do some study work in order to understand how to play their game, it will be an immediate turnoff. And this is the primary problem I have with the Junction system. It's so unnecessarily complicated, and will immediately turn off anyone who's just here to play a simple RPG. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying JRPG mechanics cannot be a bit more involved and complicated sometimes. The problem is this game. The problem is this is not even complicated. This is one of the earliest attempts of Square of trying to be complicated and just coming across as convoluted.
What was wrong in keeping the MP bar, for instance? Like, these all using, magic as a resource for that, it just makes it pointless.
This is something that
for the actual GF summoning, because they don't help much. You're basically
Theo.
just doing better just by attacking.
Theo, go ahead.
To project it to a 10 level GF. Sorry.
Yes.
Don't call my girlfriend low level.
I'm ready.
I'm his support. Instructor number 14, Quistis Trepe. Or is it
Yeah, that's
Trepe?
her full name.
Is it Trepe or is it Trepe?
I don't know.
So
Select the time limit to choose one suited for your abilities. Challenging yet reasonable.
I'm gonna go 10 minutes because I'm hardcore and that's how I roll.
Here's the thing though, it's better if you pick a low time because your score at the end will be higher as a result. The more time you pick, the more, the less your grade will be at the end.
My job is to support you in battle. Everything else is up to you.
Fine.
Alright, while this is going on, let me just quickly explain something
You're so
else.
social, aren't you, Squall?
Again, I have to translate this to more simple terms because there's a lot of people in the audience who are probably confused. Anyway,
Hold on this.
the boys often choke in this test when I come with them. I guess my charm makes them nervous.
Maybe it has to do with the fire that will literally choke.
Maybe the lava.
Whatever.
Yeah, that's Squall's catchphrase, by the way.
I'm just kidding. Trying to keep you relaxed, that's all.
Yeah, you're doing a great job in a
very
flipping
relaxed in a bloody
volcano.
volcano.
Okay, we'll give one minor positive for the game so far. I actually like the dungeon theme. It's fine enough.
Yeah, the music's
Not
fine.
Not too super, but fine.
But anyway, let me just explain that bit. Okay, so basically, Shiroi, the basic gist of it, like I said, you have to junction the magic to your stats to raise them. However, Shiroi, it's not as simple as that still. There's another layer to this thing that I haven't explained to you yet. You cannot just go on and just junction magic to your stats ad nauseum. You can't do that. Whenever you junction a Guardian Force to your character, whatever magic you can junction to your stats depends on what abilities that Guardian Force has. Let me explain.
Why is Quistis crying?
But she's
That
not
was a poison
Animation.
debuff that lives.
poison debuff Dwibs. Anyway, basically, Shiroi, let's take a look at Quetzalcoatl, for example. Quetzalcoatl has the HPJ and VIII abilities. J stands for junction, meaning that since Quetzalcoatl has the HPJ and the VIII abilities, and by the way, you have to learn these abilities. By the way, the GF also has to learn abilities on its own with the XP you gain from battle, for the record. But so when you get HPJ, so meaning Shiroi, if you have Quetzalcoatl equipped to your character, that means you can equip. You can junction magic to your HP and your vitality, but not the other stats. In order to junction magic to your other stats, you have to get a Guardian Force that has those abilities.
Here's the thing, though. GFs learn that those abilities weigh the AP that you get from battle. This is why
I know.
Card turning technique has to be exploited. Hold on.
I know that too. I just said XP to make it simpler. Anyway, I guess I was right. All right, so go ahead. Whatever. Don't worry. That's not important.
I don't know.
It's just her blabbering. Okay. This is it. Are you ready, Squall? Whatever that gesture means. You seem confident enough.
There's Ifrit. Here's the thing, though. One thing that the game doesn't tell you. Basically, one thing that is counterproductive. Now, Ifrit is fire elemental, and one of your starting GFs is Shiva, so you think that you should do that to make things easier. Wrong, because using Shiva in this battle decreases your total score. Again,
it does trigger a dialogue from Ifrit, at least. Though.
Yeah, it does. But again, it's you'd think that it would actually encourage for strategizing battle, but no, it actually penalizes you, silly me, for thinking straight.
Not bad for a human.
But again, here's the thing, and keep in mind, obtaining the rank of Seed, as we will mention later, is important for you to gaining money, because you don't get money from battle in this game. Again, another thing to fuck up with the battle system. You get paid regularly in time based on the rank that your characters have. How do you raise the rank? By doing literal tests based on what happens in the game.
Written tests, yes. You have to do written tests in order to get paid, and you'll basically be paid every like 20 minutes or so.
I mean, to be fair, you can still sell potentially the loot that you get from enemies, so there is another way to potentially exploit this in your favor, so the game is not super merciless.
For me to lose to a human. Very well, I will join you. This is a throwback to classic Final Fantasy games where if you beat the summoned, we will join you.
It's recapped also, we end on Ifrit's ass.
That's the thing too. Back in the 90s, I would agree with you. But now that we have the internet, here's the best way to get rich in this game, everybody. Go to the internet, get a cheat sheet of all the written answers for the tests, and just do all the tests, and you'll basically be paid up the wazoo over and over, and you'll get rich and you'll never run out of money. There you go.
Pretty much.
Anyway, here's an explanation on elements. More explanations! Yay!
Why?
Because you have to learn something. Junction can change basic parameters such as strength and magic, as well.
It doesn't do just. You can change that also to elemental resistance and affinity, and same for buffs and debuffs as well.
Okay, let me explain something like this, Shiroi. You know how in certain RPGs, when you can equip certain equipment that has a resistance to a certain element, like for example an armor that is.
Kingdom Hearts actually has.
For example, there's certain equipment you can equip that is more like gives you an extra resistance to fire magic, for example, right? Mm-hmm. Right, Shiroi?
Yes.
Okay, not in this game. Instead, if you want to get more resistance to a certain element of a magic, you have to junction magic to the elements of your character.
But I don't want to.
And keep in mind, Shiroi, again, going through the limitation of the game, you only have one slot for fencing capabilities and two for armor, meaning that you can get a decent to complete coverage. If you want to have something like, say, resistant to all elements in some capacity, you can't really have a decent percentage, even using the high tier spells. So again, the game even limits you on, despite the exploitability, the game still limits you on becoming completely invincible. Same goes for the buff debuff section.
Basically, yeah. It boils down to this. The entire gameplay revolves around the junction system. You want to raise your elemental resistances? Junction. You want to raise your stats? Junction. You want to have summoning and magic and even use items? Junction. And that's the and so they really thought this was going to be the next big thing, it seems, because they shoved this thing in your face for so much time in this game.
I'm not quite sure they thought it was going to be the next big thing, just that they thought that it was the best thing to do for their next game.
For innovation, yeah.
Again, that's the thing about Final Fantasy. No game is really the same gameplay or mechanics-wise. I mean, sure, you got some of the obvious stuff like attack, magic, and money, but those are pretty much the only constants, and heck, sometimes even those can change things. A lot Final Fantasy XIII Trilogy. My point being is, like, well, I'd say it's Final Fantasy's greatest strength, but also its greatest weakness. The need to innovate.
Yeah.
It boils down to this. Yes, it is good to try different things. It is. But at the same time, some things don't need to change. You know, there's a reason why 3D Mario games still have the long jump and the triple jump and stuff like that, because sometimes there are mechanics that just work and there's no need to change them. You know,
I do fear that we've come to a point where the whole quote-unquote innovation thing is unfortunately ingrained into Final Fantasy's personality, so I get the feeling that no matter what, we'll probably see this continue, even when it does hurt the series.
And even though they can stop at any time.
Yeah.
This was a thing since the beginning, by the way, because again, like Jova did mention also before, Final Fantasy II completely reinvented the way you level up, and what I do actually like that kind of system, it really is not fitting for the franchise, just like this one.
I'll just say this. When the sequel feels so different that some people can argue that it feels player hostile, you've got a bit of an issue here. I'm not saying that Final Fantasy II is an inherently bad game, but man,
It's
it feels so drastically different from Final Fantasy.
It's also
1
it's a love it or hate it situation. Ironically enough, just like the
There's a lot of fire elemental monsters here. So Junction Blizzard to your elemental attack. So there you go.
A bit late for that. We just defeated the boss.
So there you go, Shiro. If you want your attacks to be ice elemental, so you can be strong against fire monsters, you'd have to junction ice magic to your elemental attack.
I guess in some ways you could say it's kind of a souped-up materia system, like, you know, the whole attaching materia. Although I say souped up because with materia, it was just, hey, attach this certain elemental materia here to power up your attacks and give you access to certain spells here and there. Here, oh boy, you gotta think beyond just how to attach
yeah.
You gotta think
the materia system. They're two opposites of the same spectrum, Joe. But this system, while technically offering more customization, is unnecessarily complicated and just goes way overboard with the customization and to the point where it just becomes busy work. Hold on, too. Whereas the materia system allowed for customization, but it was streamlined to the point where it was easy enough to understand while still allowing freedom for veterans to properly customize things to make characters powerful if they knew what they were doing. Go ahead, too. I'm basically finished.
I get the idea on paper, like how the gameplay was constructed, like Pedro mentioned, to give the player a sense of freedom, you know, in order to build up everything, including your stats and you know, your elemental affinity and everything. Choose the best GF, choose the stat that you want and the magic you want to associate with. I get that. But it aside from the exploitability, it's severely limiting, ironically enough, because it basically gates way from you to using magic, because that's clearly not the way magic is intended to be used in this game. It limits your command board, because some of the extra commands are kind of useless, even some of the iconic stuff that you can do, like stealing, for example. You know, even the benefit that it does require several micromanagement that can turn off potentially you know, even someone who wants to get behind this. Basically, it's a game that requires you to have a kind of a Magic the Gathering or Yu-Gi-Oh level of, you know, commitment if you want to actually get somewhere.
Yeah, and that's the primary issue. This was not the right time to do this, especially because right before this game, Final Fantasy VII, the series has just become mainstream. This wasn't even the right time to do this. Maybe later down the line, but no, this was the worst possible time to throw players into this incredibly unnecessarily complicated system. Because, like I've said, my biggest problem with the Junction system is how completely unfriendly it is to people who are not super JRPG aficionados. You know, like people sometimes. Okay, the reason a game like, say, Final Fantasy IX is so beloved is because you can just pick it up, play it, and the gameplay systems are so incredibly simple and easy to understand while still having plenty of depth to keep the player invested. This game, on the other hand, hides its shallowness behind a shit ton of words, a shit ton of mechanics on top of mechanics. Basically, this is a game that it's in denial of its own shallowness, really. Because when you actually get down to it, people like me and Teo will tell you that it's still restricting, like Teo said, and it doesn't really make the game more complex or interesting. It just makes it more. It just gives you more busy work. That's all this Junction system is. It's busy work.
And when you figure this out, you basically just flip the switch to God mode. So if you're not a fan of those, you're basically broken every enjoyment that you had with the game.
That's the primary. Sorry, go ahead.
This is why Final Fantasy X, despite the problems that it might have in characterization and story, still has a much, much better gameplay, because despite ditching the normal level up system for the sphere grid, the gameplay still maintains a consistency similar to previous titles, you know, with traditional type of commands and magic usage, you know, unlike this game.
It's like, let me put it, this is the primary reason why I was saying that if you want to play this game today, I definitely recommend playing the remaster. Why? because they added in a no random battles option. They added in a 3 times speed option, which will allow you to grind much easier. And most important of all, you have an option that basically is God mode. Basically, press R3, and immediately the game will refill your HP and MP and give you an automatic limit break. So basically, if you don't want to deal with all this crap, the remaster has you covered. And trust me, if you're just doing a casual playthrough because you just want to enjoy the story, this is a godsend.
And this is sadly one case where I actually have to admit that the boosters are the better option in this game, sadly.
I mean, isn't it kind of a bad thing though if you want to enjoy the game?
Oh no, it is.
Pretty much.
That in itself is a testament to how badly put together this system is, Dwibs, because it's okay. Again, don't get me wrong. I'm sure that, don't get me wrong, the Junction system has its fans. By all means, if you like this system, I'm happy for you.
The Junction system is the very epitome of acquired taste. Even someone who does not hate this game and has gotten some enjoyment out of it, I will be the first to admit that it is an incredibly acquired taste. Like, unless you like it from the get-go, I can't promise that you'll have fun learning it. I mean, like Pedro and Tio said, it's possible to break it and absolutely have a great time with it. But at that point, you have to go out of your way a lot for it.
And keep in mind, we have just started, in case you haven't noticed, and there are already so many problems with the game.
Yeah,
It feels like this system, like a lot of it, feels like the kind of thing that's there for, I guess, call them advanced players who are actually heavily invested. This is not entry-level mechanics. This is bullshit.
If it were like a spin-off game,
Shiroi, me and Teo.
Get a spin-off.
Sorry, Shiroi. Even that fear. Sorry, go ahead, Webs. Finish. Sorry.
You know those spin-off games that are intentionally either really easier or really harder than the mainline ones?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I reckon it would be so. It wouldn't have gotten such a split reaction if it were like a spin-off game or something.
That's the interesting thing, Dwibs. If they introduce this thing in a spin-off just to try it out and see what people think, then I would be a lot more accepting of it and a bit more open-minded. But this is not really the kind of mechanic you introduce via a main series entry. But that's the thing, Shiroi. Your theory is kind of disproven by the fact that me and Teo understand this system completely. We do, and we actually did go all that, and we are veterans of this bloody thing, and yet we still don't like it. So even veterans can still dislike this crap. So yeah, okay, everybody. So that was study work, the game part 2. Tune in for part 3.
Remember to junction to your GF regularly.
Yes, Shiroi. That's your lesson for that's your lesson for the day, Squall. You need to learn to junction things to yourself regularly. That's the only way you'll get stronger.
Whatever.
Exactly. See ya.
See ya.
See ya.
Yeah.
Yeah.